startup from home. So on a personal basis, I actually think with the right conditions and the right mindset, it can be more productive and environmentally sustainable and mentally healthy. What you notice when people are not visible is in the office is that they have to let their work get them noticed, and so we're actually seeing a definite increase in productivity and output in our teams, and we're still now we're planning about what the future looks like. But I don't see us going back to an office, nothing like we were before.
Interesting. And Ritika, your take on this?
So yeah, I don't see us going back to office anytime soon. Like Richard said, we have no visibility of at least COVID going away from our city. I'm based in Delhi, and in Maharashtra, where our big office is for Nielsen. And in the current times, if I talk about the entire organization and people, we are working from home and we are working for home along with working from home. So we are kind of building, not that work from home is a new concept for a company like ours. In fact, when people come to apply for a job in Nielsen, they usually say, "Oh, we've heard you have great work-life balance, you have work from home policy," and that's quite exciting for people to start their jobs thinking it's work from home. But yeah, without realizing work from home really means you're working a lot, and you're saving the travel time. So we were already in that environment where virtually being available and working from home was something that's BAU for us. For somebody like me, I work in Delhi, my team is in Mumbai. So I can work from wherever and I'll be virtually available for my team. What we are trying to do in the current situation is the lines between working hours, when to start work, when to end work, when to expect a call from work, it's kind of fading because, like Richard said, that your productivity goes up while you're working from home. The ownership also some levels goes up because you're not available physically, you're not meeting people. You're like, oh, whenever I get my boss's message, I have to respond. Whenever I get an email, I have to just pull it out and start working on something. So there are a bit of fine lines of end of working hours or starting of working hours, which are blurring. What companies like us are doing to help employees maintain a bit of work-life balance is telling them that don't work late evenings, try wrap up your work early. We've even told people managers to do. So what we've also done is we've set a 1 hour calendar block on everyone's calendar for lunch for 1 to 2. We said, that's your personal time. Feel free to decline all meetings during that time because there will be, people working in different time zones, trying to block your calendar or trying to work with you at that time. So just respect your own personal space and time. Try to build a balance because you don't want to get burnt out while you're working from home. You may be saving travel time, but there is work for home also that's become a new normal for people who were living with support systems, had helps coming home. Now you don't have all that. So you have to do a lot more than you were earlier. So yeah, trying to build a balance and working from home.
I think everybody's trying to find that balance because there's just no boundaries when you work from home, are there? You're just, you don't know when to stop. You start and, you try and fit things in between and it's really difficult. Ritika, when do you think your workforce will go back in some normality? Like if you talk to Deep Kalra, he says that 20% will go back possibly by September. When do you think, what percentage of your workforce do you think will go back and when?
Yeah. For a company like ours, our bread and butter is research. Our bread and butter is field work. Our bread and butter is, collecting data from the field. So we have already started fieldwork last month. So we proudly say that we sent people around in cities where their safety level is much higher than cities like Delhi and Mumbai or Bangalore, where numbers are much higher. People have started going to work. We've ensured their safety. We've ensured, them getting supplied with PPE kits, support systems, medical, doctor on call, extended insurance covers. So we've tried to do a lot of support system that we've set to get the ball running in terms of people going on field to work. Apart from that, people are working from home. So we've now realized that this is the way we could have operated earlier, saved some sort of fixed costs of our offices, administrative cost of, heads coming into work. Some roles, some some job types will actually become permanently work from home. I think all of us are realizing now that will be the new normal. We will save office space and let people work from home, because if it's working brilliantly well, people are working hard. Like, again, quoting what Richard said, people are more productive if they're working from home. Then why not make it the new normal? So that will become the new normal. Also, I don't see anything in terms of us. We have a huge global team together, which is the project management team, to decide which offices are going live in which parts of the world, to track the numbers, to track how safe employees are, to start opening offices. So we are taking those decisions. So if I were to say China offices opened long back when China life became normal. So the same way we are tracking how the cases are and how safe is it for employees to start going to office. And I don't see that happening before September, at least for a city like ours. I don't know, Samir is one of our clients. So Coke is one of our clients, and we tell our employees that, is Coke calling you to office for meetings? So the time clients start calling you to offices for meetings is when we will have to be in office, or we will have to be in the field going and doing that. But the clients also not doing so, because everyone's concerned about safety and security. So I hope September is when it looks like life becomes a bit normal.
Yeah, I remember you saying that some time back when you and I had spoken, not any time before August. Thank you so much. So the second question I have, Richard, you work with a lot of companies within the UK, and you have a lot of interaction with them. Which industries would you say will be the first to recover from COVID-19, in your opinion?
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's really interesting to differentiate between economic growth, which I think will be quite sluggish, and sectoral growth. And I can see certain sectors where that can be rapid. I don't know what India's or the UK's sort of economic recovery looks like. I keep hearing different shapes. I hear V-shaped and W-shaped and roller coaster shaped. And someone told me it was going to be a Nike tick swoosh shape the other day. But we're a membership organization representing about 80 large corporations, mostly British ones, which are active in India. So we do get to see a sort of a cross section of this, and the ones that we're seeing picking up fast are primarily technology related, actually. So education, edtech, e-commerce, pharma, healthcare, data services, anything in AI and agri-tech. And actually manufacturing and defense, particularly driven by what India is doing in terms of reforms at the moment. That's where we're seeing a lot of interest and pickup from UK companies. And to go back to the sectoral growth point, I think, you look at IT services. I know they've been significantly impacted by what's been happening in the States, but COVID is going to catalyze the digitization of absolutely everything. And I think that's another example of a sector that's going to be picking up and growing very rapidly, outpacing economic growth generally.
Thank you. Ritik, I'm going to hand this over to you for 1 minute, because you have a quite strong data analytics sector in Nielsen.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
So adding to what I see will pick up are the sectors which will see growth much faster than the others. We do have data science. So whether it's things like digital, in fact, a lot of researchers have come and talking about how data science, digital, cybersecurity, data analysis, machine learning, AI, cloud and data roles, or software development roles. In fact, I don't see any. In my technology sector, I don't see as much decline as well. In data science, I don't see as much decline. We still continue to recruit a little bit. The numbers are not as high as they were before, but we've not paused. We've not stopped recruitment completely. So we will have some bits of roles still trickling in. Like Richard also mentioned, medical, so pharma, in fact, in today's day and time, so pharma, medical, health equipments, digital companies, companies which provide or enable digital entertainment, work and office systems, or logistics supply kind of industries. What I see not picking up and these are what I see picking up, maybe by the end of the year, even better. What I see not picking up, and we were talking before the panel actually went live about how tourism will pick up next year, how will people start traveling. I'm kind of thinking maybe tourism is something that will go the last in terms of getting normal. People will be so scared to take flights and, stay in hotels or sort of be out in public places together. So hotel industry and tourism, I think will be pretty much the last ones to take charge.
Sure. Samir, your take on the FMCG part, maybe?
If you look at FMCG, some of the FMCG companies, some sector, FMCG is a wide sector. It has lots of different elements that come in. So whatever come in essential services will pick up earlier than some of the other things. A lot of, you read the CEOs giving interviews, talking about new price points and so many other different things. So it will come back because it's essential, basically essential services. You need soap, you need beverages, you need basic things. So they should come back. I think Diwali is one of the important barometers to look at the sentiments around Diwali. And once it's never happened before, so nobody can actually make a. It's only an educated guess, but things are coming back to a normal to an extent. All the companies are making efforts to further tune themselves to what the consumers are asking for. And as we go along, I think it will come back. It'll take a few more months, but as the shops open, as people go about adjusting to this new life, new things, new requirements will emerge, and hopefully we'll all be back to normal in a few months' time.
Nice and optimistic. If only. My next question is a little long, and perhaps Richard, you could start with this one. I'm going to look at my notes because it really is a two-part question. When do you see corporate hiring return to somewhat normalcy? It's likely to come back in a known form with minor changes, or do you think it will come back with a radical shift? For instance, there's been a lot of talk about one's domicile now becoming irrelevant, and that's really what you call work away from home. It's not really work from home. But do you see companies considering that radical option, Richard?
Thanks, Sonia. I was talking to one of our clients about this just the other day, and they're a large global bank, and they've had 90% of their workforce working from home during this pandemic. And the great learning from their perspective has been that 90% of their workforce can work from home and still deliver. So that Rubicon has been crossed, and they're now looking at a strategy for actually keeping about half their entire workforce full time working from home, which I think makes sense for a whole bunch of reasons. But mitigating real estate costs with a damaged balance sheet is a really compelling reason. But in that situation, I think countries like India have a lot to gain, because the cost differential between a talented person with an internet connection in a tier 2 city in India is very compelling compared to the same talent in London or New York. So I think it is going to completely change how we do this. But I don't think we should think of COVID as like in isolation. We should see it as just pressing fast forward on a whole bunch of things that were happening anyway, right? Particularly digitization and automation and machine learning. I think these things actually have a far higher long-term impact than COVID has. The changes that AI is going to make just should be what students are thinking about now, because I mean, I'll give you an example, right? So I was talking to my sister-in-law, who's a doctor in the UK, and she was telling me that the future she sees not too far away is one that completely subverts traditional hierarchies. Take the role of a doctor and a nurse, for example. If a nurse can carry a supercomputer that combines humanity's collective diagnostic skills in a smartphone, then actually nursing, which relies on empathy and interpersonal skills, becomes more important than a medical degree and its detailed knowledge acquisition and retrieval, which I think is interesting. On the subject of how people hire, I don't think hiring methods are going to return to normalcy, honestly. I mean, the ed tech I talked about earlier, they work with this fantastic platform called Localize, and Localize is like a kind of LinkedIn for students and kids to connect with companies. And the way it's doing it, the way it allows students to communicate with HR professionals, it's very open and transparent, and they can build resumes together and they can communicate before they hire, and it doesn't rely on that traditional kind of commission-based recruitment model. I think this sort of thing is presumably where it's going, but Ritika will have a a more nuanced opinion of this than I do.
I would have a recruiter's opinion on that.
And Ritika is very positive, by the way.
Yeah, I try to be a positive person usually. So, and I've been saying that to students, and I know this group of panel is for students and parents who are wanting to have their kids do further education and plan through, what's right for them. So I want to make it very realistic. I want to make it informative. I don't want to make it very high level information to be given to them, which is not really useful. So giving you a view of how organization like ours or companies which are multinationals kind of change their ways of working or change the way they are looking at future. Whether it's COVID or whether it's any other recession situation, we immediately go to thinking, is the current organization structure good or great? Do we need to make any changes to the organization structure? What are the skills that we will become probably redundant, or roles which will become redundant, which we may not need when the organization comes back to, or life comes back to normal after a few months, 6 months, 1 year. We kind of look at longer term projections. We also look at what are the skills that we will need to give a push, something to charge ourselves up and make up for the lost time, make up for the losses that the organizations have had. So we think of planning new skills, new org structures, number of people at different levels. So we do all of that. In fact, I don't know about others, but we are definitely doing that right now. We've already gone through a global organization structure change where we've looked at reorganizing ourselves and saying, we were servicing our client in an X way earlier, but now I think a client will need to be serviced in a Y way because we need to start thinking differently. So new skills will evolve, hence anyone who's looking to see, how recruitment will evolve, what roles will come up, keep your eyes open to look at what's happening in the market. We are still working on this. It's work in progress. In the next 3 months, all of us will probably have more clarity on how many jobs are coming in the market, at what levels do we really need those people, what are the skills that those people need. We are defining job descriptions right now. We are putting those skills there to be more futuristic. So what can work, and none of us can really be predictors of what's going to happen. We really hope, and I want to think positive. In the next 3 months, life should be much better and normal, but we still don't know. So just be on a watch out and look for what's coming your way. I'll also be on a watch out for looking for what's coming my way. We all are professionals, right? So we're sitting like this vigilant and saying what's happening next. Every day is a new day. Every day is a new development in organizations like these, right? I see Samir smiling about it. So I'm sure Samir has something to add, but every day we have a new challenge, and we have things like a COVID team. So I'm a part of the HR function. So we have something like a COVID team to take care of employees, to take care of emergencies that are coming our way. We're dealing with a new situation every day, and we've not dealt with it in the past. So there's a new situation, and none of us, including the most senior, most leaders, wouldn't have seen, oh my God, so I've never come across a situation like this. So now what? So we're battling those situations. We're making strategies, plans, which are very new. None of us have faced them. So we're also learning in the journey. Samir, do you have something to add? I see him smiling, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I was just going to say.
Thanks, Ritika, because you're right. I identify with this. Every day is new. You don't know what's happening. And in fact, just to build this point further, the Economic Times carried a story, I think on Friday, that most big organizations in India have dropped investor guidance for the next few months. They are not going to tell you how much revenue they are expected to make or what kind of things that they will do, because they themselves don't know. Now, these are some of the most reputed Infosys, TCS, the biggest of the organizations. They are saying, guys, we don't know what's going to happen in the next few months. We are not going to give you the revenue guidance. And that actually speaks to what Ritika was saying. Every day is a new day. New things coming across, new things we're hearing. So yeah, it is a time, hopefully in a few years we'll reminiscence very fondly about it. But right now, my smile should give it away that it's quite tough out there right now. It's quite tough out there.
No, but I appreciate Ritika's view. I mean, I've heard her speak before, and sometimes students need that, especially, whether it is or it's going to be fast, it's not. It is going to get better. It's not going to be like this forever. And I think they need to know that. And positivity when it comes from recruiters it's always a good thing. So I definitely, I think that's a good thing, and you appreciate it. So, it may not come back as fast, but it has to eventually. It will, because the only way is up. Thank you so much. So let's move on to the next question. This is an interesting one. Now, the world is going to see a huge amount of digitalization. And in light of this, what, in your opinion, are the important hard skills students must be armed with today? Samir, I'm going to give this one to you first.
Right. So, see, all what was happening so far has been that anything, any job that requires repetition will either go to a smaller city or another country, or will be sacrificed at the altar of digitization. That was true before COVID, will probably get accelerated as you go along. What is needed is, and for students and parents who are listening in, I've always looked at it from a point of view that when you are in 8th or 9th standard, you have a 360 degree. You can become a veterinarian, or you can become a specialist in insect, or you can become a whatever you want when you are in 8th or 9th. But as you move along, from 360 degrees, you start narrowing your scope because you start concentrating on something. As you hit 12th standard, you go from 360 degree to say 180, because you can pick up business, you can pick up finance, you can pick up commerce, you can pick up arts, you can pick up any field. If you go abroad, you can even pick anything you want, even further, all the options that you have that they open. But all of these are something that you can do and not predict. So, but what is important is that as you go along, one, you start picking, and if you look at finance, now as you move along in finance, there are about 20-30 different streams of finance. Corporate finance is one, investor finance is another one, venture capital finance is another one. You will start seeing, so one, you need to have a certain appreciation that whatever you are looking into has a much deeper field that you are going to encounter, and you need to be ready for it. And from that lens, you need to start looking at what is the skill set, what is the tools that are being used. So one, if you look at engineering, a lot of colleges in India now have SAP labs that they learn SAP hands-on. So when they exit, they know things much before, rather than organizations waiting to teach them for 6 months on their benches. That's not going to be a positive if you don't know those kind of skills. So whatever is relevant to your field, whichever field you pick, one, understanding the tools of the trade will be extremely important. The other thing that I've always believed is the skills that help you build. They're foundational in nature. So say public speaking, being able to make presentations, being able to understand data, being able to make sense of data. This is true for any field. So if you look at verticals, say, okay, you learn SAP labs for something you do with SAP and all the other fields. But if you have horizontally, if you want to look at it, these are some of the skills that you need to build. Some may come naturally to you, some may not come naturally to you. It doesn't matter. At some point of time, these kind of skills will become more and more important as you go along, because you will know what you know, but if you are sitting 1,000 kilometers away and you are not able to communicate what you know, if you're not able to present it in the manner that it is supposed to be presented, you will always start 2 steps back. So look at it from one sector specific, look at the tools of the trade that are being deployed, and you can do that by visiting webinars. You can go when things are better, go to fairs, look at what the industry is going in which direction. What if it's finance, you can watch CNBC kind of news channels, who I worked with actually in the past. So you get good information from there. And then horizontal skills, which are public speaking and similar stuff. So those kind of skills should help you prepare for digitized future in the world.
And Ritika, your take?
Yeah, I think I echo with what Samir said. So there's a plethora of digital skills. So if I start listing them down, it will apply to a different company with different platforms that they're using. What Nielsen wants versus what a Coca-Cola wants will be very different, probably because of the backend tools that we're using. So what's important at this stage for students, for the panel that we have here, for the attendees that we have here, is to identify which industry, which field, what is it that interests you, and start working towards developing the skills that you would really want. If you're going to a hotel industry, if you want to do something in aviation, you'll have to think through different kinds of skills that you want. And soft skills are something, like Samir said, is something that we'll have time to develop as well. Now, I don't know when colleges are really going to open. You know, that's something that we were discussing today. When are the new batches really starting? Is it July? It was supposed to be July or August. Maybe it's later now. I don't know when people will physically start coming for their further studies, coming to colleges. So if it's getting delayed, if you're starting your study a little later, so what do you do right now? What do you do in the time that you have? There are a lot of soft skills that you would want to start developing right now, so that you will be ahead of the curve when you start, studying and going to college. So soft skills like presentation skills, standing there, and when we go and recruit from colleges, we take the campus interview. So it's very interesting to see how each and every student actually comes across in very, very similar copy pasted way of, what they've learned in their course and what they've learned in their college. So they will introduce themselves in one particular manner. The speech will be absolutely kind of a copy paste with different names. The resume formats are pretty much similar, with extracurricular activities also similar, projects also similar. So when you go for campus recruitment, it's a very interesting experience. So what is it that will make you stand out then? Will be the investment of time that you do on yourself right now, the investment on developing yourselves and your skills right now. Life is very different from outside school to college, for sure. And from outside college to corporate will be an absolutely different life altogether. We hear people coming in and addressing us as ma'am or sir. We don't live in an environment in multinationals where people address us as ma'am or sir. We address each other with the first name. So learning smaller things like these and making yourself a stronger professional right now is something that will go with you a long way. So digital skills, by the time these students graduate or complete their study, will be absolutely different. For me to say, okay, you should do this right now, something else has come or evolved in the next 6 months, I will not be able to recommend exactly.
I actually have a tack-on question to that. Something I was watching in the news the other day, some economical program. So it's arguable that the USA suffers from a digital skills gap. I think few people would argue with that. But do you think, and Ritika, you can answer this first, do you think that will increase the opportunity for India and for India employment, the fact that digitalization and the skill gap there is less?
Well, I wouldn't want to really say it in terms of the US market, because I would want us to focus on what's going to happen in our market. Anyway, from what's going to happen, I don't think people are getting any more work visas or new work visas to go out. So whatever skill we are going to develop, it's going to stay in our country. So the skill gap that's there in the US may have to be filled by talent in the US, and the skill gap that we have in India will have to, be worked here. Did I get your question right?
Yeah. Richard, do you have a take on that? The fact that the USA suffers from a digital skills gap with the hard skills in coding or whatever that may be, and that will increase opportunities for Indians and India itself?
So obviously, I think the US is currently a slightly challenging market for economic migration. But I agree with Ritika. I think there's tremendous opportunities for digitization domestically in India. I mean, I honestly think we're at the start of this. And talking, from the UK perspective, I do think there's opportunity. I think there are still opportunities outside. And the UK, for example, after a few years of having a slightly challenging visa regime, has opened up a bit. And I know that a lot of the IT companies, the Indian IT companies operating in the UK, do find it quite challenging to get STEM graduates of the right caliber and so on. So there's still opportunities there. And the UK just opened a new scheme to encourage scientists and entrepreneurs and researchers to apply to live in the UK. So maybe not the US, although of course it's not going away. It's still a gigantic market. It's still going to be part of everyone's career sort of landscape. But I think there are some other ones outside of the US, and certainly domestically, I think it's very exciting.
Thank you. So I do have a little bit on soft skills. Samir, you did touch upon this in your last answer. Would you agree that the following soft skills are going to be even more important in the new norm? Effective communication, and I am a strong believer in this one. critical thinking, and agility. Why? Why do you think these three soft skills will be important?
See, jobs are not, like I said previously, jobs are not what they used to be. There's no more keep going in it and keep doing repetitive. The more value-added jobs that even Richard was talking about that you could do sitting in India, they are largely about making sense of things. There is a stream of data. Now, if you look at internet has democratized data or information, at least to that point, right? Now, organizations such as Nielsen works with us. They provide us with data. Now they upload everything on a system. Everybody has, at least those who have subscribed to it, will have access to it. But what do you do with that information is extremely critical. You need that critical thinking to be able to make sense of that data. Let me give you an example of how it actually works. I work in the marketing team, and our brand managers churn out beautiful ads, and they go out, and when you meet people and they appreciate the ads and we feel good, and sometimes you get a sense that people look at those ads and think that is marketing. In fact, that is a very small part of the overall marketing piece. You have to look at data, you have to understand it critically, analyze it. Marketing is more science than actually creativity in that sense. And if you cannot make sense of the data, especially what BGS and all that Nielsen does for us, if you can't make sense of the data, you cannot, it's not about storytelling. Storytelling comes at the very end. So it's extremely important, the skills that you mentioned they don't come. And the good thing is that these things do not come one fine morning, you wake up and wash your face and you have these skills. These skills have to be honed every day. And that also will separate you from the competition, because it's not as if that tomorrow morning a college graduate will come. He may have learned the tool. So if you only know how to operate a tool, a college graduate can take over your job. But if you know how to critically analyze, if you know those kind of skills, it will be, somebody will require that kind of experience to be able to, match up to your standards and be able to contribute at your level. So when you are deploying those skills, it becomes that much more important. You become that much more valuable, and the more you use it, the more valuable you end up becoming. So yes, I strongly believe, I think, and you will see more and more high-paying jobs or more valuable jobs come from those skill sets.
Yeah, and I remember we had discussed this before, the written communication, right? The problem is that the young graduates right now are not going to work where they can learn these things, right? You can't go, even for me at this point in my career, I can't walk over to my colleague and say, oh, I need this. And it's so easy. I have to put it in a concise email. He has to understand, and inevitably I'll get a phone call saying, but is this really, and these are the soft skills that the students learn on the job. So it's things that they learn, when they first start working, and then they're at home. And so for me, the written communication anyway, that's something it's my thing. But
I agree with you there, because a lot of times when you get emails from people, including when they write you notes on LinkedIn for an internship request, I tend to believe, have you actually paid some attention to your writing skills, or have you actually thought what you're writing in for? I would rather if, you write 10 emails, but you write 10 requests for internship, but you write them well structured, well researched, rather than in bulk finding emails from your friends and then sending dear sir, madam emails to everybody and then hoping that somebody will catch on to it. It's not going to happen.
Work like that.
Yeah. So if written communication is going to be, well, I spoke about presenting and other skills, but I think written communication, because emails are now the new form of documentation. Earlier, there used to be a special format for writing applications, and we used to print them out in a, and give them away. But now emails is the way to reach out. A lot of, like, when people cold call me, I just tell them, thanks for calling, but here is my email. Please send me an email. I will read it and then come back to you. For me, obviously, the way it is written will help me dig deeper into what they are sending. I think written communication is going to make a huge comeback. And there are a lot of tools, actually. Again, like I'm a big fan of these tools. There's a Grammarly as a tool, which helps you improve your grammar. You may not have good education, great English, but you can using Grammarly and other tools. Even the new Microsoft update on Word has that. It helps you narrow down, sharpen your writing. And the more you practice, the better you become. And again, like I said, any of these things which take time to develop will be your advantage going forward, because the next batch coming in, or the next set of people, or your people who are competing for your jobs will take that much more time. They'll also take a few months, few years to develop critical thinking, written communication, and so on and so forth. So yes, they are all going to be even more important as we go along.
No, and just before I move on to Ritika to answer that question, we had actually put a soft skill module into our training at ISBF. That was pre-COVID. And now that I think about it, it has components of email writing and group discussion and things. And I'm really now strongly in the belief that was a good idea what we did. And we continue, obviously we're continuing it, but maybe that was some foresight on our part. I don't know. Ritika, over to you.
It's you know, a lot of it is education and practice both. So you just don't have to study communication or being agile. And there's one point on being agile also that you mentioned, Sonia. So I'll get to that. But communication is taught in the classroom, but practice outside. So you need to practice effective communication in all kinds of spheres of life. Wherever you go, whether you're talking to a staff member in a hotel, you need to know how to communicate effectively to get your work done. So it is that skill of effective communication that takes you a long way. Drafting or sending an email is simpler than ensuring the right content and the right message and the right response comes to that email. So it's not just about sending an email or writing an email and communicating a message, but it's about getting your work done quickly, impressing the person who's received that email, and not in terms of impressing, making that person feel good about himself, but impressing in terms of the crisp or the sharpness of the message that you have sent across. Samir did mention that students send across emails or in-mails to us on LinkedIn for internships. I've got emails on LinkedIn with incorrect spelling of my name. I've got emails on LinkedIn for internship with another company's name mentioned for internship, not my company. And I've actually sometimes ended up responded saying, sorry, but you've written to the wrong company. I'm not the right person. It's very clearly a copy-paste mistake, but students really need to be watchful when you're writing for requesting for internships. These are the first watch outs anybody would have for, how sharp you are while you're doing this work. How important is it for you to get an internship? This talks about your diligence in looking for a job, and hence what due diligence will you do at job when you're actually working with us. So we do look at these kind of traits. Another point on agility that Sonia was mentioning, it's important, and we did touch upon that earlier when we were talking in the COVID scenarios. We don't know what's coming our way every day. So we change ways of working, we quickly move, quickly act. There are times when we get, and obviously there are no boundaries of timelines and weekends also sometimes. So we get a message from our boss on a group saying, this is critical, this is very urgent, Monday morning we have to do this with a big group of people, we are HR folks. So weekends are gone. We sit on these kind of video calls and we are like having tea and working over the weekend, putting a plan together. It's fun. It's good to do so because we know we are in that environment where we have to deliver something by Monday. We don't have an option. So we have to quickly turn things around as well. So being agile is extremely, extremely important. We work beyond boundaries, and not saying that the organizations end up exploiting you. Okay, that's not how one should look at it, because we get enough time to do our home chores. If I say, if I block a calendar time of 4 to 5 right now to say I have to do home cleaning, sorry, I don't have time for it. Otherwise, during the day, nobody's going to question me. So that's the kind of respect that we have in organizations for personal life and professional life as well. But agility is very important. So being there, acting very quickly, quick turnarounds is something that stands each one of us out.
Sonia, you're on
silent. You're not audible.
Sorry. What I was saying was that agility is also important because, as Samir said, nobody predicted COVID-19. And it makes you wonder in the next 3 years what's going to happen. It could be a natural disaster. Samir, I think you and I have spoken about that. And then you just have to continuously adapt yourself to the situation that, could be happening in the next 2 to 3 years. Thank you so much, Ritika and Samir. Next question, Richard, why don't you start with this one? How can younger associates in an organization be more productive, and how can their productivity get registered with the higher ups, especially when they're not visible?
Thanks. Yeah, as I said earlier, one of my clients told me that they'd noticed the staff, because the staff are not present in the office, they make themselves more present with their line managers by working harder and producing more. There's a darker side to that, as we explained. I don't believe you want to get to a situation where you just because someone's working from home, they're working 24 hours a day. But the point the client was making is that to stay present, you stay present by delivering results. I don't think that means doing more work, honestly. I think it means working smarter and being more disciplined in your focus. I do less work than I did 10 years ago, but I achieve far more and add more value. Practically speaking, just from personal experience, I've found I keep track of all my time. So I count my time through the day. And I do that because when you look at it sort of retrospectively, you'll see what areas you're being productive in and what you're not. And it's surprising how much time is wasted in not being productive during the day. And what's that saying? If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. I think for younger people though, it's about adopting a mentality of lifelong learning and development through your work. But most of all, to step back, I really think we need to rethink how we approach our career counselling and choice of work. And this will be uncomfortable for some people listening, but I actually don't believe a student's best interests are served by making a choice that's someone else's choice or someone else making that choice for them. I do believe that students today, looking at the workplace, should never make a decision based on status or money alone, or necessarily what their parents want to do. If you don't have passion in your area of interest, I don't see you staying in the course. And this is very important for me when I'm hiring people. You've got to follow and pursue what you care about, and that I think is how you will not just be productive, but you will be impactful and successful in your career.
Thank you. I have one last question from my side. Samir, maybe you can take this one. Is the traditional career growth a thing of the past, or will it exist post-COVID? What role can senior leaders such as yourselves and Ritika and Richard play in helping young recruits navigate a changed path?
So if you look at your parents' generation or a generation before that, careers were pretty unidirectional. There was, you started in a company and you almost ended up in the same company, or maximum one company you changed, and that was your life. About 20-25 years back, say post 1991, 30 years back, you had more options. So you started moving, maybe you passed through 5-6 companies. Nowadays, if you see, there is a lot of organizations have flattened and they're becoming flatter. And you will see a lot of emergence of people with specific skill sets. No more it is going to be about, as you grow in future, that it's a lifelong job. That's already gone. It may not even be a full-time job and that may not be the case. Even in Western countries, you see gig economy is taking hold. Specialist economy, specialist targeting, specialist jobs are taking hold. So let me give you an example. In PR, you have crisis experts. You have a specific, say, music marketing experts in PR. If you end up becoming deeper and deeper about your knowledge, that's the kind of thing you can build. So you do one day for X company, crisis management in PR, and then because you're a specialist, some other company hits crisis, they call you and you come in and manage it for a few months and you move on. So one of the first industries to get benefit from this, or youngsters who benefited from this, is the software coding industry. This Rent a Coder and so many different coding platforms that have emerged have this gig economy where people upload projects, they upload the cost, and here young people bid for it and they execute it. So more and more careers will move more in the specialist direction as you go along and not in generalist, and also in terms of being flexible enough to move around in terms of managing projects. Now, it could be within the company that you manage projects. You could be a PR expert for a large MNC and you keep moving around, or a finance expert of a particular and you move around, or it could be for a large industry that, okay, you are a finance or an accounting expert for, say, beverage industry or a food industry, and you move around. So that is one of the things that is going forward, I believe, would be in careers. Now, what could senior people in position of giving advice? I think one of the things that I believe, and I do that with people who reach out to me, is point out emerging trends. I think it's very important in terms of things have changed over a period of time. You notice young people coming in point them out and keep it, tell the people you're speaking with that these are the things that are coming up. These are the things, like in FMCG industry, one of the interesting that is coming up is selling via e-commerce. Who would have thought that Coca-Cola will be available on Amazon and people would buy, 6 cans on Amazon, and now that's a big thing. So if you have those kind of skills, you will be welcome, not just obviously in a MNC, but other organizations as well, where FMCG products which are 15, 20 rupees are also being sold on internet. So one is pointing out that. The other is, I think, obviously what we have, that is, so one is obviously this new part where offering, the other is offering network. If you know some people, if you are not able to assist in a specific, because as niche things becoming more and more niche, if something like if I know Richard, I know you, Sonia, if I can offer my network and reach out, say, would you like to speak to this person, have a chat, I think that remains true, that was true, and remains true. And the third and I believe the most critical aspect is the mental aspect of because they would have seen their parents in a particular way going through, and this changing from that kind of to a gig economy or any of those things also requires a huge mental shift. It definitely has its own highs, because gigs are usually better paid in day-to-day terms or monthly terms than a normal job, but it also brings in the uncertainty of not having a job at a particular point of time, or losing out on an important project altogether. So I think the mental aspect, the networking aspect, and also very critically pointing out what are the trends and what are the tools and what are some of the aspects that you could go see and learn from, say, a webinar or any of those things. So I back to you, Sonia.
Thank you. Thanks, Samir. We have a lot of questions and a lot of long questions from the audience. So is it okay if I was going to ask Ritika, but then we do have a lot of questions, so I'll direct some of them to you from the audience. Right, let's have a look. If a student, this is the question, if a student were to back calculate their professional options in this new set of norms, how would you advise them with respect to choice of undergraduate degree? Interesting. Some foresight required. Ritika, do you want to take that one, or you want to start with that one?
Sorry, I think Samir, go ahead.
I would not back calculate anything. I think it's exactly opposite of what I would advise you to do. What Richard also mentioned, and I will tell you, while Ritika is an interior designer, I am a civil engineer. So I am managing Cricket World Cup activation and marketing and stuff like that, but I'm a civil engineer. So this is all at least in my case, it was back calculation. My father was an engineer, is an engineer, and I thought I would have a similar life. I would begin from position of strength. What is your passion? And that is the starting point of finding, this is something I would like to do. If you don't have an overlying very hard passion, what are some of the things that you like to do? Even that will give you an indication of some of the things that you want to do. See, things are changing doesn't mean that things will not exist. Most of these finance, hospitality, engineering, marketing, all these jobs will exist. It's just the form and structure of organizations and how these skill sets will be deployed will be changed. The skill sets will be required. So I would believe that to survive in that kind of a changing environment, it's extremely critical that you begin from a point of passion, something that you enjoy, something that you like, because if you're not enjoying yourself and you are in a particular position of in that job, so if you don't like to sit down and look at data and go deep in it, maybe things that require that are not something for you, because if you're stuck there, you'll stick out like a sore thumb, and that will be the end. So look at it the other way around. What is your strength? What do you enjoy? And going forward, pick options in that direction as you keep getting more and more information.
Just adding one more point to that, Samir, and you mentioned you'll kind of get stuck in a particular zone and that'll be the end. I wouldn't say that'll be the end. Maybe the positive me thinking. We've seen a lot of career journeys where people start with doing something else and over a period of time realize that they were not cut out for doing this job. they either did not perform well, or they realized themselves that, I'm not enjoying doing this work. This is not something I really wanted to do. I thought that, while doing my study, I thought that this is something that I want to do for, 10, 20, 50 years. People keep changing careers. People keep shifting the type of work that they do. So be ready for that during your journey as well. So those will come across as surprises to you at that moment of discovery. But when you look back and think that you've course corrected yourself and you've made another choice, it's absolutely okay to do so. So there can't be a right formula to say, okay, I've decided today in the next 10 years, I'm going to be the CEO of the company, and you will get there. You'll have to, kind of take this kind of a journey up, down. It's like a snake and ladders where you kind of keep moving around.
Yeah, no, I second that, Ritika. I mean to say that you will have an opportunity. You will have to go back, but if your fundamentals are right, you can keep shifting, and you will see all throughout your life. Even my father is 75, but he moved from power sector now to solar, and he's now working on solar even at that age, learning something and working in that direction. So yes, you will have opportunities and you'll be able to go forward. But again, from your point of passion, whatever is your passion at given point of time, project it from that far onwards rather than backwards from there.
Thank you. Richard, what do you, if you think you can just take this question, it's quite an interesting one because youngsters these days are having their mind to be quite the entrepreneurs. How do you foresee the pandemic affecting the otherwise startup culture?
Sorry, Sonia, how do I see the pandemic affecting the
startup culture?
Startup culture. Well, there are a couple of aspects to this. I honestly think that the current situation is a catalyst for an extraordinary amount of opportunity, and people who might be considering their career paths and their career options should be absolutely thinking about entrepreneurism in this space, because well, partly because obviously the job market will be quite depressed, but also there's just so many opportunities that this crisis is throwing up. And I really think that a recession or a crisis is quite a good time to start a business. That's what I did in 2007-8. I didn't plan it that way. It just happened that way. But actually, I can retrospectively look back and think it was an amazing time to do it, to build something during a recession. I mean, the challenging aspects, obviously, and we talk to clients about this all the time. I think it's a difficult time to raise money for your startups, unless you're in education technology, in which case people are just throwing money at that problem at the moment. I think entrepreneurs, it's always a good time to be an entrepreneur. I think I consider myself an entrepreneur, even though I'm managing a small NGO, if you like. I think if you can have that mindset throughout your career and in your work, it's a good thing to have.
Thank you. I know you had brought you have a company, right, that you had started in 2007 that you had brought here. I forget the name.
I didn't bring it here. I started a company called Flying Fox, which was an adventure tourism company. We persuaded forts and maharajas and hotels to give us their palaces, and we build these adventure courses around them. Tremendously good fun.
So you have the passion and the entrepreneur there. Let's see. Samir, in light of what Samir said about digital skills, could one expect a younger workforce in the times to come?
India is already quite young. I think the last week there was a data that India, 50% of the country is not 25 or younger. India will definitely have. That's the advantage that we have is we are a young country. Yes, the good thing about digitization is that the new generation that is coming in is digital native, so to speak. I at least learned how to use smartphone, or touchpads and things like that, because I moved from basic things to computer to the new generation that is coming in is digital native. So that is one advantage. But yes, more and more people will be using digital tools. Younger people, yes, will come in. But I think going back to the question that you answered earlier, the older people will have to, or the people who are currently employed will have to move and sharpen their skills in critical thinking, agility, and more communication, because that will become more and more and more important, and that does require a certain amount of time to hone those skills. But yes, younger people will do better when it comes to certain type of jobs where digital tools and all are important. And as they grow along, then the path then becomes is you not tools will keep changing, but your ability to critically think, be agile, and have good communication skills will then further power your career.
Thank you, Samir. Ritika, this one's for you. How could human resource practices such as Nielsen be taken to other organizations? I think you had mentioned the lunch hour, do not disturb. I like that, by the way.
I think these kind of practices come a lot top down. So how your leadership thinks, not in just one country. In companies like ours, we have leaders in various parts of the world. How they think about people and how people centric they are. So if somebody wants to take it to other organizations, I would say just propagate, talk about it, tell them best practices around. Talk about how organizations are doing these different practices to have better employee engagement and better productivity, happier workplace. Talk about it, take it to your organizations or wherever you want to propagate it, but it does come top down. It doesn't necessarily go as employees' voice and directly get implemented. I'll be very realistic. It does go top down. Your leadership has to have faith and belief in these systems to be able to drive.
Sure. Thank you. Any takers for this one? I think all of you could probably answer this one very well. Do you see these times impacting the degree of globalization for different economies? Samir, you unmuted, so I'm guessing you're taking this.
I was just, okay. Okay, so degree of globalization. See, it is very broad question. So some of it, you'll have to look at sector-wise. Knowledge sector was already getting a lot globalized. Manufacturing became globalized. You had, China, which was a huge manufacturing superpower. India, emerging superpower in manufacturing. I think like what Richard mentioned earlier, you may have opportunities in England that may happen in India. The world is already globalized and will become further globalized. I think one watch out that I personally believe that we Indians need to have is that we will also be subject to the same powers of globalization. Today, these call centers get moved from Bangalore to say Visakhapatnam. Tomorrow, they'll go from Bangalore to Nairobi. And what happened to us, what happened in different parts may happen here as well. So globalization works both ways. So it isn't just one way. And I think, yes, more and more globalization will happen. It will be lot more industry specific. It will have parts of it. But I think what is happening is also governments are building, policies that try to keep things within. But eventually, in my personal view, the force of economics will take over. Wherever the corporates will be able to make sense of it, larger movement will be in that direction. It won't, I'm talking a couple of decades down the line, that will be in that movement. It cannot be stopped. So globalization is an idea which already existed now for last at least 2 to 3 decades. It's not going away. It's going to change a little bit of shape, may pause for a while, but it will come back in its full glory because the economics make sense of it. And that's how countries have evolved. So, and India has evolved as the knowledge superpower because we have lots of colleges and lots of English speaking people who have been able to contribute. If you look at the kind of things we used to do earlier, only doing call center work, to now very high degree of analysis and analytical work that is going out. So it's a motion, and it will, I think, continue to have with a few pauses and a few redirections and things like that.
Thank you, Samir. Richard, maybe you can take this one. Is there a netiquette, hope I got that word right, for work from home? If so, what are the new set of norms like? Working from Goa?
That's right. Is there a netiquette for working from home? I think people have different opinions on this. I mean, someone in my team the other day told me that when they're working from home, they imagine themselves to be in an office environment with their colleagues around them to create a level of professionalism and a feeling of being at work. I don't think that works for everyone else. I do think it requires real discipline to work from home, because it can bleed into the, you can easily bleed into the rest of your day, and your sort of balance between your home life and your work life can be significantly eroded. I personally think we probably end up doing too many video calls and taking up too much time doing those, and then it seems to be very little time afterwards to actually act on the video calls and do the things you said you're going to do on those conference calls. But I think it's really interesting. I actually think there's something that that HR professionals are going to have an interesting challenge doing, because how does a company create a sense of identity? How does a company create a sense of belonging for those people when they're thoroughly dispersed, disaggregated teams? I think it's an interesting point.
Sonia, one thing that I don't know if Ritika and Richard have encountered, and maybe you, there is a problem with Microsoft Outlook that it books meetings in the blocks of 30 minutes and 1 hour, which has now become a huge issue. So I think shorter meetings, what used to happen in office, you get everybody quickly together, 5-10 people, quickly take a decision, move on, has gone out, and that is what has led to, Richard, all half an hour, 1 hour meetings. So we are now, at least in art, going back to 5-10 minute meetings. Just block the times in 5-10 minute meetings. Come prepared for the meeting is that much more important now. So don't sit and try to prepare for the meeting in the meeting. Come prepared at your own speed, at your own time, but that 10 minutes then ends up becoming very critical for decision making, rather than, or maybe even shooting ideas, but not come up with ideas during the meeting. So I think that netiquette will eventually come. Can't take this half an hour, 1 hour calls anymore for even smallest of things, because that's what the technology demands you to block. Thankfully, with Microsoft Teams, I think now you can block 5, 10 minutes each. So a small shift, but I think it will help save time and help us do better.
We've actually had sessions. We've actually had emails to people helping them understand how a work from home or remote environment works very well. And like Sameer said, block time, even if it's required, not for 30 minutes. People just block your calendar and 30 minutes is gone just because you want a 5-minute discussion. So block the limits. We don't use Outlook, we use Gmail. So we already had the option of blocking time for 5 minutes, 15 minutes. We do that. Multiple more etiquettes are attached to remotely working. Now, when you're in office, you can have somebody standing next to you. You can walk out of the room if you're not interested to be in this meeting, or you think it's not relevant. You'll just say, okay, bye, I gotta go. I don't think I'm relevant here. But in virtual meeting scenarios, sometimes it becomes really awkward for people to drop off. Oh, that person dropped off. Why did that person go? What will people think if I've moved out of that meeting? Am I supposed to be here? You have to be very careful. You even choose the panel of people you want in that meeting. Sometimes some people end up just inviting the whole team where they're not even required, and you're just a spectator and thinking, okay, hi guys and bye guys. That's pretty much your role, right, Sameer? So
absolutely agree. Absolutely.
So I think all of us have learned to decline certain requests where we know we are not required. We question in advance if we get requests like those. We tell them, am I required in this meeting? Is this supposed to be held? Because I mean, you're pretty much on calls about 12 hours a day out of the 9 working hours. So you can't be on unnecessary calls. You can't waste your or your team members' time. You have team leaders who will call in the whole team for a meeting where you need only 4 people to be there. There are 10 people sitting in that meeting room in office. That could still happen and people could walk out, not on calls. So we have etiquettes of blocking calendar. We have etiquettes of planning the agenda of the meeting in advance. What's the outcome? Who all are supposed to be there? Plan your audience, right? So there are multiple ways you look at it, and end on time for sure, because we do value and respect time. You can't keep just going on and on. Like in meeting rooms, you still sit and stuff and you can be there, but on meeting you have the other calendar blocked. You don't get time to do your own work because you're on back-to-back calls or meetings. So when will I ever work? There are days like those also that we encounter. So you have to plan your time right, and the ownership eventually, no matter what the company does or sets as a policy or a process, the ownership is yours. Your deliverable, your responsibility, your work, it has to be done right. You plan your time right.
Right.
Do you have Richard, you're back? You're okay, Richard, you're back?
He's on mute.
He's on mute. Okay. So
Sorry,
we
I'm
have,
back.
thank you, great. So we have 3 minutes left, and I think each of you should answer this. And the reason why I like this question to end on, there's quite a positive note. What kind of infrastructural and emotional support will organizations have to provide to make work from home sustainable? And I'm saying that this is a nice question, because the other day I was in my husband's office and what's going on your computer screen? And the whole GoDaddy team had a talent show. And they were doing flash mob, and it was amazing. And it was, what, 2 hours long? But so much fun. And you could see the team's faces, they were all smiling away and really having a good time. So maybe Richard, you could start with that one. Infrastructural and emotional support to organizations, what will they introduce to provide work from home to be sustainable?
I mean, the infrastructure point, I suppose, is sort of fundamental in that, you need to have the right technology and tools in place to allow people to communicate and share work and project manage and so on. That seems like a fundamental one. The softer side of this, the cultural aspect of this, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think it's a really interesting challenge. How do you develop identity affiliation with a company when people are working remotely? I am absolutely not an expert about this, but my team is very good at it, and they do things like virtual cooking competitions that sort of build up over the course of a week, and everyone has to post an image of themselves cooking, and then someone judges the end result and so on. And we had a virtual drinks party the other day for the team after hours. So I don't know if there's one size fits all on this, but I think there are things that you can do to engender affiliation and the sense of belonging, which clearly go a long way in the current environment.
Ritika, are you guys doing a hats party or?
Doing so much, it's not funny. I mean, like I said, the HR's role has evolved completely, from what we are known for doing is organizing Rangoli competitions. We have a million jokes on us floating around. So we are doing something a little more different than that now. When we talk about infrastructure, we are trying to make sure, obviously, when you talk about your laptop, your internet connection, I think organizations are even going ahead and trying to give people, the right kind of workstation, get your chairs from office to home. People are doing things like these, or you can buy your infrastructure and set up, because you don't have an office at home. People don't have offices at home. So you can buy and get it reimbursed. So companies are coming with policies like those. Apart from that, from an engagement perspective, we are trying to build a culture which is very engaging, which feels like you're in office. So Friday parties, Friday fun. We had Friday Zumba session. We had on the World Yoga Day, we had yoga sessions happening, all virtual. It's about 175 people were on the Friday Zoom session doing Zumba this Friday. Even managing the emotional side of how people are doing is something the organizations are trying to talk about. So we have external services where we provide people counseling and talk through sort of emotional turmoil or boil down that you have because you're just in one house or one room working from home remotely. You kind of get into that situation of what's happening around. So much negativity around COVID. So we're kind of trying to provide help and counseling services on that. HR team members, evolving roles. HR team members have actually pretty much called the entire organization. So we picked up the phones ourselves. I do have a list of people assigned to me. We call people to ask them about their well-being, how you are, what's happening, how are things at home, how are things with work, anything that you need from us, not just as an organization, but as a human. As an individual who can support you. Just talk and vent out. I'm living alone at home. I don't even have friends. I can't move out. I don't live with family. What do I do in a situation like that? We've tracked down people who live alone. We've tried to give them one-on-one counseling. We've tried to give them one-on-one, kind of just some chat time to say, because you're home alone, do you need some help? So a lot of such initiatives, fun webinars that we're hosting, these kind of webinars. We have leadership webinars. We have Chai Pe Charcha. So leaders just doing a tea party, 4 to 5, sitting and talking. There's no agenda. Everyone's on video call having tea, just like you do in office. We're trying to build office culture back, in the virtual environment. Few things that I call that.
Because we're very lonely working from home. it just can be very isolating. Samir, any thoughts on what Coca-Cola is doing?
Well, all of these things that Richard and Ritika mentioned, and one more on top of it is data security. I think working from home involves a lot of data security and those kind of things. The networks are not as safe as they. So I think that is one aspect that at least our IT team takes care that data is safe and secure, and whatever is needed for that to happen. The other thing that they've done is every morning, you definitely get to talk to. We have a 9:30 call every morning, even if it's 5 minutes, even just talk to your team. It's just shooting air, what's going on, what's happening. It began with COVID checks. Now it is general well-being and other things like that. So you get to speak to your team almost every day. And the other things like getting together, we just had one on Friday evening where everybody picked up a Coke. I'll just tell you one small thing that added, I think, a joy to a lot of us. In office, every Friday, we would get lots of drinks to take back home. And because we were not in office, that didn't happen. And I also told you that nowadays you can find Coke on Amazon. So a couple of Fridays back, the office sent drinks to our homes. It said, guys, if you remember what used to happen in office, here is. So whoever has lived in the geography where you could deliver, most of us live in Gurgaon and Delhi. So everybody got Coke at home. So it was fun. It reminded us of our times in the office. We get to talk to each other. A lot of learning, learning things and whatever Ritika mentioned, stuff like that. But yes, nothing. And we all call up each other and talk to them and just shoot air, just like we used to do over the water cooler conversation, as they are called, so stuff like that. So I think we've all settled in, well, I'm not I'm looking forward to going back whenever it happens, but I think we're all settled in and having fun for whatever we can manage.
Great. And on that note, this has been a lot of fun. There's been amazing insights that you have all offered. And thank you so much for spending your Sunday with us. And it's just been an amazing discussion with you. Our token of appreciation before I quickly sign off is that ISBF has been thinking about social responsibility. And as you know, usually if you're doing this in person, there will be a lot of nice office gifts, but we thought we would do something different. So next week you'll be receiving an email, and we have planted trees on your behalf to help the environment, as the environment is at the fore at the moment. So next week you will be receiving your goodie bags and your emails with where your trees have been planted. Probably not Goa though, Richard. No palm trees there. Thank you so much. I have to wrap up, and I will speak to you all soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sonia, you're on mute.
Sorry, sir. I'm handing over to you for the next session.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second leg of this session today, which is about LSE, or the London School of Economics and Political Science, via ISPF, the Indian School of Business and Finance. Sorry, I just realized my video feed isn't on. Let me switch that on. There you go. Hopefully you can see me now. We are very happy to have been able to put this session together at the back of a wonderful panel discussion. This weekend and the next weekend of July is a careers weekend that we've kind of dedicated to high school students from across the country. We're running a summer workshop for high school students called I Aspire, because it is about careers in economics, management, and finance. Those parts of the LSE bouquet of programs that we teach at ISPF. So that's our area of expertise. And because we know that, for many students in these domains, in the domains of economics, management, and finance, LSE is one of the leading, most aspirational names, one of the most aspirational colleges that they aspire to go to study at for the undergrad level or the postgraduate level or for PhD. We felt it would be very appropriate to have a session where we spoke about LSE as a higher study destination, and also how one can sort of access LSE in many different ways through ISPF. I am very, very happy and proud to have with us on this session, or for this session today, Professor Paul Kelly. He is Dean of the EMF SS programs, which is Economics, Management, Finance, and the Social Sciences at the London School of Economics. He is also professor in the government department, where he teaches political theory and British political ideas. He was recently Pro-Director of Education and responsible for international engagement, and has represented the LSE across the world and supported the University of London international programs for many years. He currently sits on the board of University of London Worldwide and has been involved in the University of London programs for 25 years as a course convener, program director, and examiner. Professor Kelly is the author and editor of 14 books in political theory and philosophy, and he has edited the journal Political Studies and the journal Utilitas. His celebrity status in the field of political science, while it should be amply clear from his credentials, was sort of fully revealed to me when I had the sort of honor of co-conducting a session at Delhi University for with Professor Kelly. It was a session on political science, and he's on their reading list. So teachers and students alike were delighted to welcome him. Unfortunately, political science is not something we teach at ISPF, but we're very, very fortunate to have had the privilege to associate with Dr. Kelly in one way or the other for a number of years now. To finish what I was saying about him, he's also currently finishing a book on international political theory entitled Conflict, War, and Revolution, an introduction to international political theory. Even on his sabbatical, he works extremely hard and writes books. But it's lovely to see you again, Dr. Kelly, and thank you so much. And I will hand it over to you on that note and request you to share your screen, please.
Thank you. Can you see that?
Yes, Dr. Kelly, all good.
Lovely. Okay, thank you, Chirag, for that wonderful introduction. And it's, in a curious way, it's great to be back in India, albeit in this rather strange way. So what I'd like to do today is to talk about the area that I'm responsible for, and in particular, the relationship between the University of London programs, in particular, the Economics, Management, Finance, and Social Science programs, which are taught at ISBF and awarded by the University of London with academic direction from the LSE. Now that's 3 different institutions. So this short talk is really to explain those relationships and to give you a sense of where the LSE fits within that. Because as Chirag rightly says, many students coming to these programs are very interested in their relationship to the LSE, what the LSE provides in them, and how they might be pathways to the LSE. So let me take you through those various elements. So let me start then with some nice facts about the London School of Economics. We were founded in 1895 in London. So we're heading to our 125th anniversary. We were founded as a school before the University of London incorporated us. And we were founded as a school to teach what were then new subjects, which in most universities throughout the world were not part of the standard curriculum. So all of the things we call social sciences, from economics through to political science, but also important subjects like management science, the study of finance, the study of accounting as an academic subject, all of these things were new subjects, but where there was a growing body of knowledge that students hoped to acquire. So the LSE was founded in 1895 to deliver on those subjects. Our core is as a school of the social sciences. We're ranked in the most recent, one of the most recent international rankings as the second globally for the study of social sciences. So we are amongst the world's very, very best institutions that specialize in social science. We're ranked 4th for accounting and finance, which in many subjects, which in many institutions is separated out of the social sciences, and then 10th for business and management. The LSE is effectively a single faculty school. We teach all of our subjects as part of a single school of the social sciences. We don't have a separate business school. The subjects that would be taught in a business school are taught within the LSE across the academic departments. I'll say something more about that when I talk about those departments later on. The impact of the LSE over its history is considerable. Here we have the number of world leaders who have studied and taught at the LSE. We could add a number more from media and films, fictional characters who also studied at the LSE. World leaders like the president in The West Wing, Jed Bartlett, or Jack Ryan from the adventure films also studied at the LSE. And for those of you who ever watched the James Bond films, you'll know that James Bond's father, Andrew, was also a graduate of the LSE. So world leaders and hugely important figures. The LSE has made a huge impact in disseminating the study of social sciences and bringing that expertise in reality across the world. And that's exemplified in the academic excellence that underpins the school. We have 18 Nobel Prize winners currently, a number of those, including Peace Prize winners and Nobel laureates for literature, but the majority are in the core field of economics, including most recently a current professor at the LSE, Sir Christopher Pissarides, who won the Nobel Prize. And then we've had some more recent prize winners who established themselves in their early academic career whilst they were on the LSE faculty, but have then gone on to other institutions. So those are some basic numbers which are at the heart of the mission of the LSE. 50 plus, this number refers to the number of LSE faculty, full-time LSE academics who work on delivering the academic direction of the University of London International Programs, the EMFSS programs, which are taught at ISBF and at other institutions around the world on behalf of the LSE. So in this slide, we want to emphasize a number of the key degree areas that are offered in particular at our close partnership institution, the Indian School of Banking and Finance. Subject areas and degree programs which add significantly to the LSE's core mission and the University of London's core mission of allowing globally impactful degrees to be studied locally, using the global brand of the University of London, the global brand of the London School of Economics with its academic direction, through the locally significant brand of ISBF in the region. And these are the key areas that ISBF offers out of our suite of degrees. The obvious ones: accounting, banking and finance, and obviously economics, which are central to the EMFSS program. But more recently, the addition of the data science degree, which is a hugely important developing area in social sciences and in management and finance, as well as in the natural sciences. A lot of work is being done on developing data science within social science, within management, within economics, and with banking. And we've developed a new program in data science. And then, of course, the most obvious business and management program, which is an important part of the offer of ISBF through the University of London via the LSE. So let me say something briefly about the University of London then. This wonderful image is the central heart of the University of London, the Senate House building. If any of you ever have read or go on to read George Orwell's 1984, his warning about the rise of totalitarianism, the centerpiece of that is the Ministry of Truth, where the character Winston Smith works. Well, the centerpiece was based on the Central Office of Information, which was the propaganda ministry of the British government during the Second World War, which was housed in the University of London building, Senate House, this building, and Orwell actually worked there. So it has this sort of sinister but imposing image in London. And it's a real center for students studying locally when they come to London to often take part in the central graduation, to visit the University of London building. They come to this building. It's absolutely fantastic, striking and iconic building, but it is the center of the University of London. What is the University of London? Well, the University of London is a federal university. So it's comprised of many colleges throughout London, which now have their own degree awarding powers, such as the LSE, but also University College, King's College London, specialist institutions and so on. They're all part of a family that is the University of London federal system. But the University of London began as the oldest provider of distance learning degrees. So one of the things it was established to do from the 1850s onwards was to create the possibility of studying for a degree outside of the monopoly that in the United Kingdom, or certainly in England, Scotland was slightly different, monopoly on degree awards was held by Oxford and Cambridge. And if you wanted to study in those institutions, you had to take a religious test. They were effectively teaching institutions of the Church of England. The University of London was established to be free of that and to offer degree study in a variety of subjects beyond that monopoly. And very soon, it became a provider of distance learning throughout what at that time was the British Empire. And the first distance learning degrees were awarded to students studying in Mauritius in the 1850s, taking examinations there. Now, that global reach is managed through the University of London international programs, University of London Worldwide, which are the degrees that are awarded through the teaching, which are taught through the teaching institutions with the academic direction of LSE and others. And within that, there's a particular suite of degrees, economics, management, finance, and social science, which is the largest share of the University of London's worldwide program, which is taught solely under the direction of the London School of Economics. The global reach of the University of London programs continues. We now have we have students registered for study in more than 180 countries across the world. The majority of them are taught in recognized teaching centers, and these are institutions which apply and go through a very rigorous process of recognition to be awarded the status to teach those programs. So not just any old institution anywhere can teach the University of London programs. And those institutions that gain that recognition have a close working relationship with both the University of London centrally but also the institutions that provide the academic direction for their degrees. So that is the sort of triangle, the tripartite relationship between the institutions. University of London awards the degrees. The London School of Economics provides the academic direction and content of those degrees. And the ISBF, the Indian School of Banking and Finance, is one of the recognized teaching institutions and certainly one of the most prestigious of the few teaching institutions that we recognize in the Indian subcontinent. So we work very closely with colleagues there in ensuring that the experience offered, both in terms of the academic quality of the degrees and the delivery of those degrees, is as good as one would expect for study, what one would expect from study at the London School of Economics in the heart of London. So here we have a slide which basically explains further that relationship. We have the academic direction, the teaching centers themselves, and the awarding body. Sometimes it's often a little bit unclear what is the relationship between these elements. And we do quite a lot of explaining this to prospective students so they understand precisely how that partnership works. And it's very important to understand that it is a very close partnership. Everything that is done by each element of this partnership is to ensure academic quality and rigor and the transferability of those standards across each element of this relationship, so that students, whether they're taught directly at the LSE, whether they're taught elsewhere in the University of London family, or whether they're taught specifically here at ISBF, they can be sure that they're gaining the best quality experience in these subjects and at the highest academic standards. So once again, the academic direction is the LSE's contribution. The LSE's research feeds into its taught programs. It provides learning resources, and it also provides the examination for those programs. So if you do come and you study at the ISBF for your degree in economics, for example, when you take your exams, those exams go back to LSE academics. And I can assure you that even in these difficult times of COVID, those exams are being marked at this very moment in London. And I am marking exams on one of the courses that the EMFSS program offers. So LSE academics, core LSE academics, professors do the academic direction and ensure the academic standards in that assessment. The teaching centers provide a base for students to study locally, wherever they are in the world. As I say, teaching centers go through a fairly rigorous process of approval and monitoring, and we collaborate closely with them. And this is one example of that process of collaboration, working closely with the leading figures at ISBF. They do the teaching, and they provide the campus environment, the place where students study, and build local cohorts of students who provide peer learning and support for their study of the kind you'd find at all good universities. Building a relationship with other students in the class is an important part of your progress in your studies. Unless you talk about your work with other students, you're never quite clear whether you've understood or you're progressing with it. And then finally, the University of London itself. The degrees awarded are University of London degrees. These are very prestigious degrees recognized throughout the world as pathways on to important further study or into careers. the degree is the most important thing that a university actually has. It is its standard and the thing that it uses to demonstrate the academic quality of students who've been through programs. So the award of the degree is an important part. And it's important that that degree is recognized importantly. Now, the constituent institutions of the University of London, LSE is one of them, have their own degree awarding powers now, although they didn't always, not that well, probably quite a long time ago now. When I did my university, but my LSE study, my PhD was a University of London degree, although it was gained while studying at the LSE. But all those institutions, LSE in particular, retain that relationship, particularly for this global offer of the University of London programme. And that's a very important part of our relationship. The quality of the degrees, the international recognition, but most importantly is the connection of students studying at local teaching centres in a global alumni community, one that is known everywhere. So that's one of the things that the University of London programme actually provides students with their degrees, a world-class alumni network that stretches across the world. Now, these are the programs that we offer through the ISBF, the BSc Accounting and Finance, the BSc Business and Management, BSc Economics, BSc Economics and Finance, and the BSc Economics and Management. And then we also offer graduate diplomas, which are shorter, concentrated programs which allow transition for graduates from other areas into the disciplines of the social sciences. So they're a very valuable transitional program. We offer those in data science, in economics, in finance and management. And then what happens? You come and study at ISBF and you turn into characters like this. So this is Deepak Kumar, who studied for the BSc in management, giving a testimonial for his study on that program. He says, for me, it was a combination of the LSE's reputation and the quality of the content. I found my degree very relevant to my job. I get to apply what I've learned on a daily basis. Samin Minani, BSc Accounting and Finance. I don't think I could have made a better choice. I'm actually currently studying for an MSc at the University of Oxford. I am where I am because of my EMFSS degree. So the value of the degree programs, particularly shown through these two student testimonials, shows what students are primarily looking for. High quality academic qualifications that provide a pathway into careers and good quality careers. One of the things that obviously many parents are looking for their children, the young adults in their family, is to provide some confidence in their transition into decent professions and high quality careers. And the EMFSS program does that. For some students, and for many, particularly given the University of London's international reputation, many students take these programs because they also provide a pathway to further study. And it's not uncommon for students to choose to study locally for their undergraduate degree with a view to enhancing their chances of studying abroad for a short 1-year, 2-year master's degree as a way of expediting their career prospects or their global employability. And this is clearly Samina's pathway, studying at an MSc at the University of Oxford. This wonderful slide reinforces the global community that you become part of in joining the University of London family. These are the names of important, you'll obviously see the Indian School of Business and Finance there. These are important leading institutions that have teaching recognition status. And there are a number of different institutions here around the globe, from universities like Universidad del Pacifico in Lima in Peru, to Kazan University in Russia, to SIM, Global Education in Singapore, ISBF in Delhi, Reinvest in Kosovo. These are teaching institutions that either take students onto direct study for the University of London degrees and provide teaching for those, or as in the case of Pacifico or Kazan, they offer the University of London degrees alongside their own domestic degrees. So for many students in, say, a country like Peru, who may wish to study abroad, their perfectly good national degree is enhanced by a parallel study of the internationally recognized University of London degrees, and they will take those two things together in a parallel program. For other institutions, ISBF is one of those. It's a direct entry into the program, and they study the degrees only. But I think the important point is the indication that the University of London degrees enhance the global employability and the global opportunities of students throughout the world. And that they are even chosen by some high quality national university systems for their very elite students is a further enhancement of the kind of family that you're joining on these programs. These are elite degrees, demanding degrees with the rigor of a university, with the rigor of an LSE academic authority behind them. These are not simply low quality distance learning enterprises. We're very, very careful about the presentation and the ambition of our program. And then these further icons just demonstrate the destination of students. And there's a nice mixture here. LSE is clearly a very clear destination for many students who wish to go on to study on the MSc programs. You'll also see an institution called Harvard University, which I believe is quite good. Again, a hugely elite global institution where students will go to study with their university after completing and performing well in their University of London programs. So these programs are demanding and rigorous. They're recognized as such, and they produce some of the ablest students who go on to study at some of the leading institutions. Cambridge University is also there. Obviously, with degrees like the EMFSS degrees, economics, management, finance, social science, many students will go on and work in the leading business, consulting and financial institutions. Barclays Bank is represented there, KPMG and Ernst Young as consultancy, global consultancy organizations. These are very important recruiters of University of London graduates, globally and locally, both in India proper, as well as throughout the world. And the University of London degree enables students to enter those companies and to travel within those companies as marked out with a globally recognized qualification. Leading new companies, Microsoft, Google, are also hugely important employers, particularly for students with the advanced quantitative skills that come from these programs and from new programs like the data science program. And then, of course, interestingly, the United Nations Organization and the World Bank. One of the destinations of LSE graduates, one of the biggest destinations of LSE graduates after 3 years of post-study work, are the global institutions like the institutions of the United Nations Organization, the World Bank, regional development banks throughout the world, and so on. And many students go on to work in these international organizations with these high quality qualifications. Let me start to bring this to a close. So there are a number of ways in which you can access study at the London School of Economics, alongside the academic direction of the programs on the University of London. There is the general course, which is an opportunity for students to take a short period of study, a junior year abroad at the London School of Economics for a full year. There is the summer school, which unfortunately is not operating this year given global circumstances, but the summer school is a very big academic enterprise of the LSE. A number of students on the international program will come and study on the summer school to gain the physical experience of studying in London at the LSE. Many students who would like maybe to come to a master's degree at the LSE, a residential master's degree, use the summer school as an opportunity to experience life and to test it out. And then there's the opportunity to come for graduate study on one of the over 140 master's programs offered by the LSE. If I was to describe the composition of the LSE student body, we are slightly unique in that more of our students are graduate students taking master's courses than would be undergraduates. So many of our students do come to the master's programs as their first point of direct study, either through the University of London programs or through degrees from universities throughout the world. So this is a very common route into the LSE. India at the LSE. For this audience, it's important to mention that if you come to the LSE, we're a very international institution. Nearly 60% of our students come from overseas. And for many decades, students have been coming to LSE from India. Currently, we have approximately 80 Indian undergraduate students, many more at the postgraduate level. More than 200 students study master's programs or PhDs at LSE. That's the very common route. For a number of years, the visa status of Indian students has been less attractive than it could have been, but the UK government has recently reversed that obstacle to re-establish and to reinforce the partnership that the UK wants to have with the Indian higher education community. And we look forward to extending a welcome to Indian students at the LSE. They remain one of the larger groups of overseas students studying at the LSE, dwarfed perhaps by China and by the US, who have a history of being large suppliers of overseas study, but a significant amount of students come from the subcontinent. And of course, many of our domestic students will be students who come from families with a South Asian background. So just physically being at the LSE, you do see the presence of the whole subcontinent there. The LSE has a very large and thriving Student Union India Society. We have a South Asia Center. We have many very famous alumni, including Dr. Ambedkar, the founding father of the Indian Constitution, which if you come to the school, you will find a statue to him, very prestigious former alumni, and of course, ex-President K.R. Narayan. We have, as I say, very large numbers of Indian students coming over the years, and consequently, there are large alumni groups back in India. And you'll find those active in major cities: Bengaluru, Chennai, Kolkata, Mumbai, New Delhi. The life of the school and the support of the school and its programs by former students, LSE alumni from India, is a very important part of maintaining that family connection. I won't run through this, but this is a slide you can look at to see the areas of study that the LSE provides. Banking, finance, business, of course, covered there, but the school has a very broad take on the social sciences, from accounting through subjects like anthropology, my own subject, political science and international relations, areas like sociology, law, and then subjects that support the quantitative study of social science like mathematics and statistics. We have very important departments in those fields who provide important contributions, significant courses that appear on the EMFSS programs. We encourage the quantitative study of the social sciences and social phenomena, and maths and stats are a very important part of that. The ways to access the University of London undergraduate admissions: there is the International Foundation Programme, 60% overall, with a minimum of 60% in 3 or 4 specified subjects, and 40% in the 4th. Applicants may also be asked to sit the LSE undergraduate admissions assessment. There is direct entry into degree level programs with an average of 60% in 2 specified subjects and not less than 50 in either. Degree level programs, importantly, there's the possibility of second year entry for students to enter into the second year, the honours years, if you like, of the programs. And these are done through the UCAS application system and must be done by the 15th of January. And I would recommend that you check all requirements on the websites before applying, as details are subject to review and change. And this is guidance, not the precise details that you need. For graduate admissions after the University of London, if you want to go on to do an MSc at the LSE, you would need a first-class bachelor's degree, and at the very least an upper second, a 2-1 bachelor's degree. Some programs require or value relevant work experience. GMAT scores or GRE of 650 or 163, and different programs specify different requirements. So it's very important to check those things. And in some of the very highest demanding subjects, say the MSc in finance, a first-class degree is an absolute minimum entry requirement. 2-1s in some others, where the demand is both excellent and high, and the number of places is somewhat limited, the competition is very, very severe. University of London students benefit. They have an exemption from providing a GRE or GMAT score for the MSc Accounting and Finance, the MSc Economics, MSc Economics and Finance, Philosophy, MSc Finance, Finance and Economics, Finance, Private Equity, MSc Quantitative Economic History, and Risk and Finance. So there is advantage to those entering these MSc programs from having come through the University of London programs. As I say, these programs, because of their tie to the LSE, because of the LSE's academic direction. These things are important. And then for PhD and MPhil, a good upper second bachelor's degree or a master's degree with a merit. And then it wouldn't be an LSE presentation without saying something about fees. And these are the costs of studying at the LSE. LSE is an expensive graduate-focused institution with undergraduate students. Fees for the year 2021, 21,570, with postgraduate degrees between 22,000 and 36,000, doctoral study for international students at 19,000. The general courses there and the summer school as well. On top of that, you'd need to calculate estimated expenses, and also for those who would perhaps seek work to support themselves under the Tier 4 general student visa, students can work for up to 20 hours. And given that the LSE is one, expensive, and two, in a global city, is very common for students from all over the world, as well as the domestic students too, to do some work as part of their study. And all the details for that are also available on the relevant website. But there is also financial aid, scholarships, scholarships in particular that are named for Indian students. The Inlax Foundation Scholarship, J.N. Tata Endowment Scholarship, Lady Meherbai Tata Education Trust, the Merchant Foundation for Law Students, Margaret Basu Scholarship, and then the University of London International Programs offers 2 scholarships, again covering the tuition fee. And then there's the possibility of Chevening scholarships for students coming from India. And here is the website for review of the Chevening students. Thank you for your attention. And now I hand back to Chirag, who has his own short presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kelly, for shedding light on several different aspects of the programs and of LSE, of course. I will just build on what you said and present only a few things additionally. Just put my screen up. So, okay, I hope that is visible. So, since the theme of the session is LSE via ISPF, actually, even before I get into that, let me just say, any students who are looking to ask questions, students, parents, counselors, please type them in the Q&A box at any time. After my piece, which I will keep fairly short, we will open it up to hand raising as well. So you can go ahead and raise your hand when we can try and unmute you as well, and you can speak your question out. But in the meanwhile, please feel free to type it in the Q&A box. So as the topic of the session is LSE via ISPF, Dr. Kelly has said a lot about both LSE as well as LSE via ISPF. But I want to just sort of focus on the various ways in which one can access LSE through ISPF. Some of them may be obvious, some perhaps slightly less obvious. And the first is just the opportunity to obtain an LSE education, access an LSE education here in India. And Dr. Kelly's already said a lot about this. The fact is that LSE is ranked among the top 10 in the world for eco, accounting and finance, business and management, whichever way you look at it, which makes any of the programs offered at ISPF a top 10 undergraduate program in the world. And equally applies to the graduate diplomas as well. And this is, and the reason these rankings become relevant for an ISPF student is because, as Dr. Kelly's slides clearly showed, everything that you learn is coming from the LSE on this program. There is complete parity of curriculum. There is complete parity of assessment standards. And every student graduates with the University of London degree or diploma for the graduates, for the postgraduate students. And you're accessing this at about 1/4 the cost. the last point I will come to. So I'm going to zip through this, not spend too much time, because I'm really merely reiterating, perhaps in slightly different words, what Dr. Kelly has already said. But the first thing is that you can access an LSE education. That is what the degree looks like, but I'm going to gloss over that. Dr. Kelly has already spoken about the programs. The other thing you can experience through ISPF is the LSE learning experience as well. And of course, it's not the identical learning experience, but it's arguably the next best thing. And I say that for a number of reasons. Not only does LSE oversee the recruitment of all faculty members at ISPF, the LSE of faculty recruitment, but they extensively train our faculty members in pedagogy, and it's become an ongoing exercise now with several webinars through the year. And at ISPF, we've had the good fortune, because Dr. Kelly mentioned that we've been among the leading teaching institutions that LSE works with. So we've had the privilege of nearly a 4-day dedicated teaching visit every year for the last few years, and at least some teacher training going back about 15 years. And these are extremely unique and value additive. Some of our faculty members have been sponsored by LSE to pursue the postgraduate certificate in learning and teaching in higher education. These are the things. So that is a qualification that is, I cannot even draw a parallel in India. I mean, it's almost compulsory to have that to teach in the UK. Even for a PhD faculty member to teach an undergraduate class, one has to sort of complete the PG cert. It's almost a mandate, I believe, whereas there is nothing of the sort in India. So these are, extremely value additive, like I said, and this is what allows us to replicate, some elements of the LSE learning experience at ISPF. So it is cutting edge because, the curriculum is being updated by LSE faculty members. It is necessarily application oriented. To quote Dr. Kelly himself, LSE is more, and LSE education is more about, training students to think like economists than teaching them economics. The idea is to be able to solve real problems when you step out into the world, not just to possess some knowledge for the sake of it. And that is why there is a deep spirit of inquiry that drives all learning. There is no room for rote learning. And I'm very proud that, in my 8 years of teaching the LSE curriculum at ISVF, I've never had to ask a student to rote learn a single concept or a single line of, text from any book. And that's credit to LSE, because exam questions do not ask them to regurgitate memorized material. They challenge them to, apply their learning in different contexts, which is what the real world is about. So through those, softer aspects, through a close-knit teaching community, through lots of innovations in pedagogy, we organize a Bombay Stock Exchange boot camp with the help of LSE and University of London, which is of course open to a wider audience, but ISVF students, participate in large numbers. Software training workshops are provided for students in, cutting-edge software, R, Python, Stata, etc. And we've had the privilege of having, so Dr. Kelly is Dean of the EMFSS programs. The other two academics prominently involved are the academic director and the associate academic director. And we've had the privilege of having the associate academic director, Dr. James Abde, as a visiting lecturer at ISVF for the last year. So he made 2 visits and was on the verge of his third when sort of the COVID lockdown happened. So he's been teaching courses at ISVF. So that is how we bring the LSE learning experience into classrooms. The testimony to the quality and the degree to which we're able to do that is the fact that, and I'm not going to navigate away from the presentation, but if you just Google LSE Global Teaching Institutions and click on the first link that you see, you'll find out of 70+ teaching institutions, 5 are featured on the LSE website on the page we're talking about, and ISVF is one of those 5. So that is, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Kelly, but that's perhaps LSE saying that, if you want to pursue our curriculum outside of London, ISVF is arguably one of the top 5 places in the world to do it at.
That is correct, yes.
Right, and that is been on the back of, excellent student performance and learning outcomes on the programs. A quick glimpse of that is on my slide towards the right. So 19 achievement awards in 6 years, 16 global toppers in 6 years. You can add to that 2 global program toppers. So the 16 global toppers are course toppers, individual subject toppers, but there have also been 2 global program toppers. I don't know if you noticed the keener ones among you, the sharper ones among you may have picked up on Dr. Kelly's last slide. It said that two University of London scholarships, or two scholarships, are awarded to University of London students every year. We've had in the last 2 years a student each bag that scholarship, which has been a very prestigious matter for us. It's something. I mean, my undergraduate degree was at Delhi University, which is widely in popular perception considered, among the top universities for economics in India. I know that no DU college can boast of that sort of, achievement of a scholarship 2 years in a row from LSE to pursue the one-year MSc Economics program, which is one of LSE's flagship programs, and various other awards. These are letters we've received from University of London and LSE, commending us on the academic excellence. But I'm going to move on to try and stick to the topic. LSE via ISVF. So those were some of the perhaps slightly subtler points. The second year transfers, Dr. Kelly has already spoken about. It was mentioned as direct entry into the second year. So there's various ways, we just colloquially refer to it as second year transfers. But ISVF has had a very strong track record here, 14 offers in 6 years from LSE alone. And this, LSE tells us, is among the most successful track records that any institution has when it comes to second year transfers, which is hugely reassuring for us. And it kind of ties in with us providing the kind of education that has made us one of their featured teaching institutions. But it's not just LSE. Students are obviously, not everybody is going to be able to get into LSE or even necessarily aim to go to LSE. Somebody may want to go to Canada or the US, other parts of Europe, and students have gone on to several other top universities around the world into second year. The LSE summer school is another. The summer school scholarship is another way for students to access LSE via ISVF. 2 students are awarded the summer school scholarship every year with all tuition and accommodation paid. They spend 3 weeks pursuing a very interesting course from across an array. The LSE summer school has an absolutely wonderful array of courses, some extremely cutting edge and contemporary, and it's been a great learning and growing experience, or an experience of great personal growth for any of our students who've done this. And there've been about 15, 16 students in the last 7, 8 years. Another wonderful opportunity is the University of London graduation ceremony in London. It's another way in which ISVF students get to experience LSE. I'm actually not even going to be able to cover. I think I just recalled that I've left a few very important elements out. So there is the University of London graduation ceremony, which is preceded by the LSE director's dinner reception. These are really overwhelming physical ways in which our students are able to experience LSE, access LSE. It's been a very prestigious and overwhelming, experience for our students who've been there. The things I said, I know I've missed are the virtual learning environment, which is a beautiful, on top of all of the classroom teaching that a student would go through at ISVF, there is the virtual learning environment, which is entirely curated and updated by LSE academics, the same team Dr. Kelly spoke of. So it's a hugely rich repository, discussion forums on every course with students from around the world, moderated by LSE academics, videos, activities, wonderful online repository, and another way to access LSE from ISVF. This is one of the popular ways to access LSE, among the most popular ways to access LSE via ISVF. Dr. Kelly mentioned that many students choose to do their undergraduate degrees in their respective home countries and come to LSE, which is a graduate-focused university. Again, many students. So just as a quick sort of reference point, as a student of Delhi University with a first division, my classmates were unable to get into the one-year MSc Economics program because back then the rigor of our undergraduate program was not deemed, adequate to undertake the one-year MSc. So we were made offers for the 2-year MSc program instead, where the first year was spent largely doing, what ISVF students would study in the second year of their undergraduate program. And only if we did well enough in that first year were we admitted into the one-year MSc. Whereas, like I said to you, 2 ISVF students have not only got into that one-year MSc Economics program in the last 2 years, but both have gotten on a full scholarship each, aside from several others who've gotten in over the years with or without scholarship. And again, the story extends past LSE. These are, I think every name on this slide is a top 50 university in the world for the subjects the students have gotten in for. There's Chicago, NYU, Columbia, Yale, Harvard, Oxford, NUS, etc. All very much in the same league as LSE, and prestigious institutions for students to study at. And then of course, there are so many other things that students get up to with this. Really, the core thing to think about is that it is a global top 10 undergraduate education that one can access at a fraction of the cost, and in this kind of climate, without the financial and health risk of kind of going abroad immediately, with many avenues to go abroad anyway once things settle down. One could look to transfer out, or at least attempt to transfer out in second year, go for summer school. There is the general course that Dr. Kelly spoke about, go for a master's. So several other options. I'm not going to dwell on this bit because it doesn't do justice to the topic of the session. It was LSE via ISVF. These are other things that ISVF students get up to. So I will leave it at that. Those are some perspectives I wanted to add to what Dr. Kelly said anyway. On that note, I will wind up what I had to say and open the floor firmly up to questions. There are a couple in the chat box that I will start by reading out, and I'll just moderate this bit, but I request Dr. Kelly for you to answer most things. I'll add my 2 cents where I have them. And also at the same time, I would invite all participants to raise their hands if they please to ask a question verbally. I have a hand raised from Umar, so I will come to you, Umar. But we have a question pending for a while from Krishnakant, and his question says, "Sir, I want to know how I will get myself into LSE. That is to say, how to get the second year transfer to LSE." You probably already answered that question, Dr. Kelly, with your slide, but if there's anything you'd like to add.
There isn't really. I mean, perhaps you could say something a little bit about the process you've used to take your own students in. I should just say it is a very competitive process because obviously departments and programs have a number of places allocated, because in the UK system you're not admitted to the institution, you're admitted to the degree program. So I think it's very important to realize that whilst we do have the second year entry transfer as a pathway, the competition is high. So the first thing you will need is to have an absolutely excellent portfolio. So whatever you can do to enhance that through your performance in your first year is going to be really the most important thing. The actual process is available on the LSE website, but if Chirag wants to say something about how students have done that in the past, maybe he can add some further details.
So Krishnakant, the process that is typically followed, as Dr. Kelly's slide also said, that it is through the UCAS system, 15 January deadline. We have a dedicated UCAS advisor who's a close colleague and faculty member at ISVF, Professor Arjupya Ganguly, who has been guiding students for transfers for I think about 8 years now. So he has plenty of experience in the matter. So the application typically, so our session typically starts in the middle of August. The application gets filed, around the 15 January deadline. And the key components of the application, aside from your school grades, are a statement of purpose, with which you get help from the UCAS advisor at ISVF, and also a letter of recommendation, an institutional letter of recommendation with predicted grades. That I believe counts for a lot. And I think there is some amount of reassurance that the LSE admissions department perhaps gets from the fact that you're coming from ISVF, from where many students have transferred and done well. And I'm extrapolating that from the fact that students have done well at obtaining transfer offers. And then that typically will, if your application is competitive, that will lead to a conditional offer in March or April. And then the LSE exams happen in May. And the condition pertains to your performance in those exams. And if you meet the criteria, then you have sort of an unconditional offer. And I can add to that 13 out of the 14 students that have got offers at ISPF have converted their condition. And the one kid who didn't had the most unfortunate case. He was arguably one of the brightest of the lot. He scored a 96 in Introduction to Economics, which is perhaps unprecedented, but missed his statistics cut off by 2 marks. But I'm sure he'll make it to LSE sooner or later. But that's how you get in. And of course, the criteria were already on Dr. Kelly's slide. I think it was 60% in at least 3 exams or in 3 subjects, and at least a 40 in the 4th, with an average or an aggregate of 60. But again, those are subject to change, I believe. So one should check the website for those.
Yeah, and also just to reiterate, they are minima. So achieving those grades doesn't guarantee you an offer or a place. And just to add, whilst the UCAS application process asks for a number of things, and we look at all of those things, it really is the predicted grades and the academic recommendation that you get from your institution, which is the clinching fact. It's down to academics. So you need the strongest possible reference from ISBF and be expected to be amongst the very best performing students. And as Chirag has mentioned, those who have come have been amongst that cohort. So people do get offers. So let me not be too pessimistic, but do understand, it is very competitive and you have to be able to compete at that level.
So, okay, we have an anonymous question, which is completely fine. As Professor Kelly already mentioned, that the curriculum and examinations of LSE are tough and will require sincerity from the students in order to attain the diploma. I would assume, Dr. Kelly, this is about the graduate. This is from a student of the graduate diploma or a prospective student of the graduate diploma. So how does ISPF prepare the students to make them absolutely ready and confident about the exam? Okay. Okay. Is there anything you'd like to say there, or should I take that one?
I think that's probably best for you, because that's your practice. Yeah.
So it goes back to what I was saying, that this has never been the easiest curriculum to even teach, and ISPF, having been around for 15 years, has a lot of miles. We have a lot of miles behind us as far as teaching these programs is concerned. And I don't think we were one of LSE's top 5 teaching institutions forever. We've kind of gotten there over a period of time, made mistakes along the way, but I think we're pretty clear on the fundamentals that go into making students fully equipped. Sorry, I have my 1-year-old son around, and he wanted a bit of screen time, I think. There you go. There he is in the background. Sorry, yeah. So it's really that it's a lot of the training, the selection of the faculty really. One of the key criteria. So being adequately qualified is a necessary but not a sufficient condition for being recruited to teach at ISPF. The passion to teach, to work with students, help them understand things in great depth, the kind of depth required, to do well at an LSE examination, at an LSE program, to eventually step out into the real world and solve problems, is the kind of people we recruit to teach. That is a big factor. The training they go through is a big factor. The formative work that we put in is a big factor. There are 6 formative assessments for every course in a year. So that's 24 formative assessments in a year, practically 1 formative assessment per week for every student. And they take diverse formats. At least half of them will mirror the LSE exam style, but the other half will focus on other dimensions of your learning. There are group presentations, there are written pieces of coursework or projects. We do capstone projects where which are multidisciplinary project reports and those sorts of things. And of course, you back it up with a lot of co-curricular exposure. And the beauty of it all is that LSE welcomes that. Even in an exam script, we're told repeatedly by colleagues at the LSE that cite local examples as long as they are robust and adequately referenced, etc. We welcome local context. They're not looking for textbookish reproduction of that very case that is in your textbook, which is the unfortunate case with several higher education institutions of great repute in India even. So yeah, I mean, it's really just a nuanced understanding of what goes into succeeding at these programs, and which, mind you, I'm not trying to say that it's not a coaching center for just the LSE exams. We're very proud to partner with LSE to try and produce graduates who are real world ready, who will solve problems in the real world. That remains the focus, and it's closely aligned. Those who do well at the LSE examinations are equipping themselves in that process with great learning habits, with solid life skills, the ability to upskill and reskill quickly later in life, learn independently, and so on. So that's what our education is about. And of course, I should not fail to mention the spirit of asking questions. That's the absolute bedrock of learning at ISPF. We provide a lot of support for doubt solving outside of class, so your learning journey is continuous. I could really go on this one, so I'm just going to have to cut myself short there and move on to the next question. I hope I've adequately answered that question. If not, please feel free to ask a follow-up. Let me at this stage, I think that the next thing I saw after these two questions was a hand raised from Umar. So Umar, I'm unmuting you now. If you could speak your question out, please. Hi, Umar. Okay, that doesn't seem to be working. Avnish, I've got a couple of questions. Sorry, Dr. Getty, you were saying something?
No, he needs to unmute.
Yeah. I'm trying to actually unmute him from my end as well, but that isn't working either. Not sure.
Okay.
So moving on then, Avnish, I saw you raise your hand as well, but we have a couple of questions from you in the Q&A box. So let us take that. If you have any further ones, you can raise your hand again and I'll unmute you. Is your data science program good for experienced folks primarily if someone is speculating career transition? Is your data science program good for experienced folks primarily if someone is speculating career transition? Okay. It goes on to add, my interest lies in data science.
Yeah. So experienced folks, it doesn't require previous professional experience in data science. So in that sense, experience, not so much, but it would obviously be a good qualification for someone looking for careers in which data science and familiarity with data science was primarily required. I should point out that the data science degree that we offer is not a computer science program, which data science is in some institutions, is primarily about coding and so on. It's more about the sort of statistical rigor that's behind the process of data science analysis. But obviously there is hands-on practice and there are practical elements to that, particularly as have been developed by James Abday, who Chirag has mentioned previously. So hopefully that answers some of your questions, but no, you don't have to have significant background experience in either data science or in computer science to do this program.
And I just add to that, if you are experienced, if you already have the experience anyway, if you have some work experience behind you, it actually, it does no harm, and certainly not your chances, not your ability to pursue the program, perhaps enables you to take a little bit more out of it in a focused way. And data science does happen to be one of our graduate diplomas that attracts people with work experience as much as people fresh out of college, out of an undergraduate program. So it serves both cohorts equally well, because like Dr. Kelly said, it is a very unique data science program. It's not like a short online certificate course that teaches you coding purely. You will pick up software skills, but they are secondary to, an understanding of how to use data science to enhance decision making, for firms, for economies, for businesses, etc. So that hopefully answers your question. You have another one, Avnish. How much does it make sense to go to ISBF initially for 1 year and then 1 year to LSE, rather than directly opting for LSE?
That's a hard question to answer. There's benefits in both ways, as we've talked about in terms of the pathway of study into LSE. A good year base at ISBF, I would have thought, was a very strong position to begin thinking about transitioning to the LSE. But of course, direct entry is always a possibility. I suppose it really turns on your circumstances, your interest, and those sorts of questions. There's no disadvantage one way or the other. I think that's a very important point to make. So if you were to go for 1 year at ISBF into LSE, you're not going to be behind, disadvantaged, or in any way. Similarly, you're not particularly advantaged going direct entry into LSE, although we're very happy to have the brightest and best students from wherever. So that's probably all I can say.
Yeah, I'll just add there, Avnish, that that's an interesting question. And like Dr. Kelly correctly said, it's really about your circumstances. If the objective is to get to LSE, and you want to use that 1 year at ISBF to get to LSE, and you put in an application directly and got in anyway, then if I were you, I would just go to LSE. Having said that, I'd evaluate one thing carefully, and this is something that Indian students typically fail to evaluate, because we're a very admission-driven, for some reason, cohort. And it's a generalization, obviously, but we're not so concerned with how well we will be able to cope once we're at LSE or Harvard or wherever, as we are with just getting into those places. So it's very important to evaluate carefully what sort of program you're applying to. Do you have the requisite background? And if you do, then by all means, if you do and you get in, then by all means go directly. But what ISBF does is that there isn't another 1 year program, to my knowledge, in the country that prepares you as well for a high quality global master's as the graduate diploma does, because the graduate diploma, like I said with my own example, is the first year of a 2 year LSE master's program. So that should pretty clearly establish that if LSE is saying that if you want to do our second year, do this in your first year, then it is as good a way to spend a year in order to boost your chances of not just getting into LSE, but any top college overseas for that matter. So I hope that provides some additional perspective. Any other questions? We're at the bottom of the pile on the Q&A box. I'm also conscious, Dr. Kelly, we've already gone over by about 4 minutes. If there are more questions, are you happy to give it another 10 or so? Another 10 minutes or so? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. So I can invite another 2 or 3 questions in that case. If anyone wishes to raise their hand or type directly into the Q&A.
We may have overwhelmed them with information.
That's always a possibility. Indeed. Okay, we'll give it another minute or so. If there is something, please do ask away or type away, whatever you prefer. But if we don't have anything in the next minute or so, then we'll probably draw this to a close. We are over time, and that applies to everyone in the audience as well. Okay, we will assume, this is usually one of two possibilities. As Dr. Kelly said, we've overwhelmed you and you have no questions, or largely Dr. Kelly has been so eloquent as to not require any further questions. Speaking of which, there is one that is cropped up, so we'll quickly tackle that one. How about applying for an online diploma to LSE initially and post that successfully opt for masters at LSE?
So the online courses are another way of accessing LSE content. Would applying for an online diploma advantage you for a master's at LSE? I think once again, any experience you have of LSE content and LSE learning is always going to advantage an application. It's by no means going to guarantee an offer, but it will always be helpful. I suppose that's the best way to advise. Is it a standard pathway? Again, students come with such diverse prior attainment that anything that really marks them out and shows that they're familiar with, to go back to what Chirag has mentioned, the experience of, or an understanding of what the experience of studying at LSE is, will be an advantage to an application.
Hopefully that answers your question. I mean, if you've had another couple come in, Dr. Kelly.
Yeah.
Thank you for that comment, Amish. We have an anonymous question that says.
We have taken just on the India issue. We've had students at LSE. We've had students from India since almost the very beginning, probably not 1895, but pretty close afterwards. And throughout the time that we've been teaching the University of London degrees, which is about 1905. So really, they are Indian students, and most of them, even in the old days, coming to do an undergraduate program, would have studied a degree level program in India first. That was a standard thing. Not quite sure why, but yes, Indian students have been very much part of our history, and we hope that they'll continue to be so. So do come.
We have one more question that says, regarding masters, does it bring a difference in our applications by pursuing our degree in India and not at LSE?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, obviously, no, it really doesn't. And I think I would go back to the most important thing. I mean, where you've studied your first degree really matters, and that's true within the University of London family as it is through every other institution globally. But in the end, it comes down to excellence. It is just academic excellence, however that's acquired and from wherever. We don't use, ordinarily, country of study or institution is not a proxy for excellence, although obviously we're very careful about the equivalent quality of degree programs, and we do look at that. But India is a global economy, a global higher education system with some of the most excellent students. So country of study is not a proxy that we would either look at adversely or necessarily even give you an advantage. It is down to the excellence of the individual student.
And I can, in fact, say there that we've seen this actually play out. It's not as if it's something else in practice. I mean, of course, it wouldn't be. Dr. Kelly saying that, but we've actually seen this play out. I taught. I've been at ISF about 8 years now. I've seen students, two students get a transfer offer each from LSE in the same year. One take it up and the other didn't take it up. And the kid who completed the program at ISPF actually got into the masters whereas the kid who completed the last 2 years of the undergrad at LSE couldn't get into the masters because he just had fewer grade or lower grades for some reason. So we've seen this in practice that because it's the same program, LSE does treat graduates of this program as its own graduates.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that brings us to the end of the questions and to the end of the session. Thank you so much again, Dr. Kelly,
My pleasure.
for joining us today. Since we cannot extend a physical token of appreciation to you, we were a little bit unsure of what we could do to extend our gratitude until a relatively new member of ISPF came up with a fantastic idea to donate some trees on behalf of every speaker. It's much needed in a country like India where we're rapidly deforesting, to put up more buildings and sort of just urbanize. So we've planted 10 trees in your name, Dr. Kelly. They will be named after you, and the geo tag, etc., for those trees will reach you via email in the coming week.
That's wonderful. That is really wonderful, actually. It's probably the nicest gift you could have given me. Thank you.
Glad you liked it. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly. And on that note, thank you everyone for joining this session, the panel discussion as well as the LSE via ISPF session. We hope you got what you came here for, and all the very best and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.